Hi guys, welcome to another video, and this is kind of fits into two camps. It fits into the product reviews videos that I've done in the past, but it also fits into the Operation Sand Dune as it's kind of related to the topic. So today what I thought we'd do is do a product review of the Perry's British 8th Army Desert Rats infantry box set. I was very lucky enough to get the 3 boxes in the full Monty deal that the Perrys do for my birthday. They actually came with a Monty General Montgomery figure and also a kind of a Brigadier General figure as well, who's looking at a map in his desert uniform. And that's if you ordered direct from Perry's as the set. For me, I wanted 3 boxes because I essentially had plans for each of them. I wanted one to do Desert Rats, one to do SAS, and one either for Australians or Indians or something, or New Zealanders, something like that. But anyway, that's just my personal preference. Now, the box itself really works for the Desert Rats between 1940 and 1943, or at least that's what it's labelled as. Having done some research, the uniforms worn in the desert is actually almost identical to the uniforms worn in the sort of in the Pacific area, sort of Southeast Asia. So if you're wanting to do, for example, the defense of Singapore against the Japanese invasion in 1941, you could use these figures and base them up, perhaps maybe with jungle bases or something that kind of fits in with that theatre. These would be absolutely fine for that and would work really well. And because of the period, the weaponry that is provided is ideal for this sort of early to mid-war period. For example, in this set, you'll get the anti-tank rifle, the boys' anti-tank rifle. You'll get a light mortar. You get the Bren guns. You get rifles, and you also get Thompson submachine guns. And they're actually the 1928 model, which has the cocking handle on the top rather than on the right-hand side of the weapon, and it also has the forward-front grip. Now, this is important because the later Thompson models that we see, for example, like in Saving Private Ryan on D-Day, came in that little bit later in the war, particularly when the Americans came in. Even the early kind of American units in the Pacific were using the 1928 model. That's really great. I mean, they've really gone into the detail of picking the right weapons and the right models. So I'm really impressed with Perry's for that. Now, one of the other really impressive features about the box set is that it comes with 38 figures. Now, there's very few plastic sets out on the market that come with so many figures. I think the most you'll get is probably 30. I think the Russians might have a few more in there because generally Russians have bigger forces, and so they provided more. But the Perry's here, 38 figures, is brilliant because what that does is it essentially gives you enough for a whole platoon in just one box. You don't have to buy extra figures to add to that platoon. So in the platoon, in fact, I've got the sheet somewhere. Let me just get that. That's what happens when you're not prepared. You get this lovely sheet. Okay, and on one side, it gives you basically a breakdown of a platoon. Now, platoon is generally made up of 3 sections. Each section generally has 10 men in it. You then also get a command section, which has your officer, a sergeant, a radio man, usually a mortar team, and an anti-tank rifle and runner. So with that, basically what you have is enough troops plus 1 to have with the probably anti-tank rifle, get that extra guy in there. You've got enough for a complete platoon, historically accurate complete platoon. And you know, it even details the rifle battalion organization in 42. So it really does give you a good number of kind of a background to what your platoon should be. It even says each platoon should also have a Bedford or Morris 15-ton truck. Now, I've got a Bedford. No, it's not 15 tons. 15 CWT, whatever that means. But I've actually got a Bedford, so my platoon is pretty historically accurate. And it tells you, you know, these figures are great for fighting the Germans and Italians in Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, and Sicily, which is great. I think you could also use these for the Pacific, but a great organisational chart with some good history. You don't often see history put on like that. On the other side, of course, you get your diagram of the sprue and different figures that can be put together. One of the other really cool things about the Perry's Desert Rats is that they come with British heads, helmets, caps. The helmets are all separate, which some people don't really like. I like having the helmets attached to the heads. It's just an extra step I don't have to do. But it kind of works because you can mix and match with the heads that you have. They do come with SAS heads with them, so you can, instead of using the normal heads with the helmets, you can actually get the heads that perhaps have either got some sort of facial hair on them and sort of the turbans or the looser fitting headdress, Arab headdress or cap comforter. Okay, so you can really mix it up just with this single box set. You can do SAS or Desert Rats. If you want to be even kind of more clever, you could order Indian heads, New Zealander heads, or Australian heads from Perry's and attach them to these figures. And quite easily you could have an Indian or an Australian or a New Zealand platoon to fight in the desert or wherever else you might be using them to fight. So in terms of diversity, it is a very good box set. One thing I would say as perhaps a small criticism is what I found when I come to paint is that although the sculpts themselves are very good, the detail hasn't come out in the casting as well. So for example, comparing the faces to say a Warlord figure, Warlord tend to have more obvious detail, which makes painting them easier. The Perrys haven't got as much detail in the faces, and therefore sometimes it's harder to pick out the details as easily. But generally speaking, I've managed to get them looking at least half decent. And I'm sure other people I know, Andy Singleton, gets his looking really good. So it is possible. The other thing is the webbing. Webbing isn't as pronounced perhaps as, again, Warlord figures. Although I am a little bit spoilt with using metal figures from Warlord. But even the plastics, generally the newer plastics out tend to have a more pronounced webbing. So although they are great figures, they can be a little trickier to paint. But saying that, still great figures. We're going to do a close-up very shortly of those figures for you to see. Anything else that I want to say? I think that's, I mean, the fact that you get so many figures I think is great. Often I found, sometimes you have to buy a box set and that kind of covers your inventory, but it doesn't give you a command unit or any additional support teams. Whereas this box kind of has it all. For my 8th army, I have used a box of these. The only additional unit I've had to add on was a forward observer, and I used the Christopher Lee figure for that, which you've seen in other videos. So, yeah, I really like that. And one of the really cool parts I like about these is you get a radio man, which looks great. Having one of those with a section, having one with the commander, platoon commander, that's great. It just really kind of brings it together. I even converted one of the officers into a medic, using some green stuff just to do a kind of a medic's bandage on his arm, or whatever you call those, armband. There you go. So yeah, so I'm really pleased with that, and as I say, I've got a light mortar and an anti-tank rifle team within the box set as well. So I'm happy with that. So let's take a quick close-up look of the figures themselves, the desert rats, and I will be comparing them with a Warlord figure, so you can see the comparison in size. They do actually fit really nicely with Warlord figures. I've got some BEF figures that I've used in my army as well, particularly with my artillery piece, and I'll be doing it with like my machine gun team, as I won't be buying directly from Perry's the machine gun team. So really nice things that you can do, you know, mixing them in with your forces without having to worry about, you know, well, these guys are huge, they look bigger and all this stuff. So let's zoom in, we'll take a look. Catch you in a sec. Okay guys, so here we have some of the Perry's Desert Rat figures. Can't get too close because the zoom is sort of putting them out of focus, but hopefully these will be a good way of showing you what we've got. And my basing is I've actually done two types of basing. I plan to get them all looking the same. On the left two, you can see a Vallejo texture paint, sand texture paint with some rocks on it, which has been dry brushed. The other, say like for example the mortar team, I used the crack earth from GW. I liked it to start with. I'm not so keen on it now, so I'm actually gonna be changing all those so that they fit in with the other type of basing which I've got there. Now on the left there we've got the Bren Gunner. I'll just quickly turn him so you can see his Bren. Bren Gunner there. Really like that. Fantastic figure. You can get that. You can also put him in a laying down position, which the Mortarman is, and have him firing a Bren. You can have a bipod for that, which is nice. Next to him I've got the Radio Man, which I'll sort of give you a close-up of just a moment ago. Then I've got my officer. Now if I turn him, you can see that his right hand there looks like he should have a pistol in it, and he should. That is in fact the officer's hand with pistol, but I chopped the pistol off, and then as you can see the white band on his left arm. Also put a helmet on him rather than a cap, and I think it works. I think it sort of symbolizes him as a medic quite well, so quite pleased with that conversion. And at the front there you've got the loader and the light mortar. Behind him you've got one of the poses is a kneeling pose, which I quite like for the NCO in most of the platoon or most of the sections. Next to him we've actually got what I think I've identified as a rifle with a rifle grenade launcher on it. Now in the rules for bolt action it doesn't necessarily make any difference, but I do think it's quite a cool little model, and you don't often see rifle grenades in for British forces in wargaming, so it's quite nice to see that modelled. And then on the right there we have the officer who does have the pistol and has his hand there pointing, kind of persuading his boys to move forward. So a really nice selection there. And if I just grab a Warlord figure, I put him in there. As you can see, he is a little bit taller, but very, I mean, this angle probably makes it a little bit more obvious than the other angles, but when you're looking at him, he's maybe a millimeter or two taller. And he's actually about the same height as the Radio Man, who is standing upright like him. Proportions wise, the arms look similar, head sort of looks similar size, legs look similar size, so it doesn't even look like he's perhaps more muscular than the others. He pretty much fits in perfectly. So I would highly recommend the Perry's figures. If you're looking for other figures to fit in with Warlord figures, which I know a lot of people do, from what I've heard on and seen on the community. So we're going to zoom back out. We'll head back to the chair, and then we'll wrap this up. So see you in a second. And welcome back, guys. So Perry's Desert Rats, 1940 to 1943 figures. In terms of rating, I would give them probably a 9.5 out of 10. They are very good. Price-wise, they're not bad. They're sort of up there with all the other plastics out on the market. In terms of the quantity of men and figures that you get, very good. Particularly like the way how you essentially get a whole platoon in a box rather than having to buy add-on sort of command packs and support packs. So that's good. I would like to see a machine gun team in there as well, a 3-man machine gun team with like a Vickers, but I presume that's pushing it a little. But yeah, apart from that, really nice. Quality of the sculpts, as I've seen, great. Only problem is the casting. They don't always come out as crisp, and that's kind of why I've just knocked it down to a 9.5. To be fair, does it make a huge difference? Well, maybe when you're up close, when you're looking at sort of right up by your face. When it's on the table, absolutely no difference whatsoever. In terms of fitting in with other models, other companies, absolutely great. They don't look out of place. They fit in my Bedford from Warlord very nicely. They look right proportions in terms of standing next to a tank, just like any other figure, and mixing in with other figures, great as well. So particularly good. Really like the sheet that comes with it. Not as only is it helpful with the sprues and what's on them, but also with the history behind the kind of setup of a platoon. And one of the really cool things is there's enough rifles that essentially you could do a section, for example, like me, I've done a section of 7 men, all rifles except for 1 LMG. Now that's very typical of, say, the earlier period, but if you go to mid and late war, you'll find the NCO with the SMG, like the Thompson. So what you can do then is perhaps do 3 other figures with Thompsons to either add to each squad, so you get essentially, in the late war, you might have an 8-man section with the NCO with the SMG, or you swap one of the riflemen out for the NCO with an SMG. So there's lots of ways you can kind of mix it up, and one of the nice things is it's not set. You can decide, well, actually I'm only fighting early war, so I'm not going to do any SMGs, and that works. Or you could say, actually I'm only doing late war, I'm going to make sure I've got the SMG in there, or you can mix it up. So lots of diversity with this box, and the fact that you can not only do Desert Rats, but you can also do SAS with them just from this box alone. That's without adding the extra heads that Perry's produced. I think it's a great box set, and it is really worth the money. Good value for money, in my opinion. So yeah, as I say, highly recommend if you're doing Africa, North Africa, or something like Sicily, kind of into Italy, or if you're doing, as I said, sort of Pacific, early war Pacific, sort of 40, 41, these would be great for that as well. So I hope you've enjoyed and found this a useful review. If you've got any questions, please, as always, put them in the comments box, and I'll be happy to answer them. Check them out. Available on the Warlord website as well as on the Perry's website. Yeah, if you've liked this video, please like. If you've liked this video or any of the other videos, feel free to subscribe, and we'll catch you in another video very soon. Okay, take care.